The impact of brain drain on Africa's health sector is severe. Doctors and nurses are leaving in large numbers, leading to critical shortages in countries like Nigeria, Ghana and Zimbabwe. Alarmed, the World Health Organization has raised the red flag. It singles out 55 countries as vulnerable. Unsurprisingly, 37 of the 55 countries are in Africa. In Nigeria, there is one doctor for every 5,000 patients, compared to one for every 254 patients in the developed world. The WHO recommends one doctor for every 600 patients. The National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives reports that for each nurse in the country, there are 1,160 patients. Over 75,000 nurses have left the country since 2017. The UK's nursing regulator, the Nursing and Midwifery Council, says some 7,000 Nigerian nurses relocated to the country between 2021 and 2022. Meanwhile, data from the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association shows that nearly 4,000 nurses left the country in 2022. And in Zimbabwe, more than 4,000 health workers, including 2,600 nurses, left in 2021 and 2022, according to government sources. Well, let's now bring in our panel of experts. Joining me here in studio in Nairobi, Dr. Ouma Oluga, health workforce expert. Thank you for joining us on the program. Also joining me here in studio, Agnes Gitau, managing partner at GBS Africa. Joining us via Zoom from Germany, Berlin, Dr. Anna Okoswa, German-Ghanaian attorney, scholar and lecturer in international law. And in Johannesburg, also via Zoom, Terry Tana Masele, headhunter and founder of the Good Human Recruitment Agency. We're also joined by a live audience, students from the University of Nairobi and also from Daystar University. Thank you for being a part of this discussion. Well, let me start off with the very first question, because we've heard that skilled professionals choose to leave the continent for opportunities. I want to start off with you, Dr. Akoswa. Why did you leave?
So I am a German Ghanaian attorney, and I can tell you from my experience from both worlds. So for some time, I was working for the German embassy in Ghana, and I could see firsthand how many people actually are applying to work abroad, but also to study abroad. So it starts way earlier already with the education, because once you are trained, it's very difficult to move jurisdictions. Particularly also for me as an attorney, it's not so easy to work anywhere I want. But then I found the opportunity to manage a law firm, an office, that was advising on cross-border investments into West Africa. And that gave me the opportunity to actually work and reside in Ghana, which is also my home country. And it was a great time. However, it was during COVID when general international business collapsed. And you could see that structurally, African countries suffered, and economically this is continuing. So this was also a reason why I had to then move elsewhere, because business was just not as it used to, and it made my work very difficult.
Right, Agnes, I want to get your view, because you're also based in the United Kingdom. Why did you leave?
What people call the primary migrants. I left the country over 20 years ago as a young student. I went to study. I stayed on because there were better job prospects in the UK than there were in Kenya. I did try to apply for jobs in Kenya and East Africa, but there was nothing available. So the lack of opportunities in my home country made me stay in the UK. But also, the UK government has this policy of encouraging, once you're trained, when they realize you have an economic value, they want to retain you. So it makes it very easy for you to stay once you have been educated, because they see your economic value. So that lack of opportunities in the country, but also my host nation, their interest in what I could offer to the economy.
Dr. Oluga, we do know that one of the major sectors that is affected on the continent is the health sector. What does the situation look like in Kenya?
Yesterday I was giving a talk to Kenyatta University students, one of our public universities, medical students, nursing students, health systems and laboratory psychologists and people who are studying health sciences generally. And I can tell you, out of the 182 students who joined the talk, nearly half of them, 80 of them, are already looking into the opportunities to New Zealand, Australia, UK, and the US.
Even before they
finish. And I was the guest speaker together with a doctor from New Zealand. And so you can already see how that is looking. So it's not looking good. But how did we get to this situation? Two things. One is the economy in terms of the absorptions, the rates. Like right now in the health sector, the transition from education to work is 60%, which means that 40% health staff are unabsorbed. They are not absorbed into any opportunities. And the second issue is generally the better prospects for career growth, especially career development. For doctors and for nurses, often, for example, if you want to be a cardiologist, there's nowhere to train. So you either go to Egypt, South Africa. Just recently is when the Aga Khan University Hospital started the programs.
Right.
And this is, so if at the higher level of specialization for health workers, you've got to leave Africa. And this is like 70% of specialized training.
Right. So, Terry, I want to get your thoughts here, because we've heard that there's probably better prospects abroad, but you do work with people who are seeking opportunities abroad. What do they tell you?
The people that I tend to work with, there's a combination of push and pull factors that are driving their decisions. So on one hand, they're discouraged by limited career growth, low salaries, lack of funding for research, and sometimes political instability in their home countries. But on the other hand, they're attracted by the prospects of higher earnings, advanced resources and facilities, a better quality of life, and of course, personal safety. So firstly, many developed nations are facing aging populations and workplace shortages in critical sectors like healthcare, STEM fields, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and across skilled trades. So African professionals with qualification in these areas are increasingly sought after to fill these gaps. Secondly, the rapid pace of technology change and innovation has created a global race for top talent, especially in emerging fields like AI, data science, and renewable energy.
So, Dr. Akosua, I want to get your experiences, because Terry has talked about some of the pull factors in abroad when seeking those opportunities. What are the pull factors for destination countries that are pulling professionals such as yourself from your experience from the continent?
Yes, I can agree with everything that has been said. I resided in South Africa as a visiting scholar, and I also really tried to stay in Africa because I'm very passionate about also economic development and these topics. I lecture them. I'm a lecturer also in Ghana. I try where I can to really bring my input into the countries where I reside. And I was staying in South Africa and just noticed how difficult it is as an academic in the global South, like with regards to access to literature, books, it's conferences that are held in the global North. It's really a structural issue that keeps academics from striving, and the same as with skilled workers. And what has been said already, that the global North is facing a shortage of skilled workers. And so there is opportunities there. There is healthcare. There is stability. We see it, the economic crisis, particularly in my home country, Ghana. The inflation is high. People are suffering. There is not enough jobs. We have high youth unemployment. And it goes hand in hand with businesses from abroad not investing into Africa, and also certain developments lacking, like infrastructures, opportunity, job opportunity, career opportunity for young people. And so these are many many factors that really keep young people wanting to look for greener pastures, which is in the global north. But it means also, as has been pointed out, that development is struggling in that regard, because African countries need skilled workers as well.
I want to hear from you, Dr. Oluga, because you mentioned earlier on that you are speaking to some students, 182, and already, even before graduation, around 80 were already looking for opportunities outside of their mother country. What are the pull factors to those destination countries, and why is there a need by these young graduates to emigrate even before graduation?
I know that pull factors have been discussed, but I think for health sector, and I spent 8 years being the Secretary General of the Doctors Union and advocating for better health workforce management and investment in the health workforce. I can confidently say that there are no pull factors, they are just push factors. I did my USMLE, which is the United States Medical Licensing Exam, and in 2012 I was licensed to practice in America. Considering the factors, I felt so bad about myself and leaving the country, so that's why I joined the union and became a Secretary General and started pushing for better conditions. And I wasn't doing it necessarily for the doctors, I was doing it for the country because that time, let me just say it, our salaries were around $300. And for me, it was, we want a doctor to stay in a village, but that doctor shouldn't look at staying in this village as a punishment. So we need the treatment of the doctor, which includes the salary and other factors, security and such, to be so good that they can stay there without looking at it as a disadvantage. And that's exactly the reason why those students I was talking to yesterday want to leave, because they don't see a future. And secondly, you've just seen the strikes that are going on. So you've seen your colleagues are in the streets. They have been out in the streets for 2 months. Even after being on the street, they are not given what they want. And there are 2,000 of them that are not employed. What are you supposed to do as a student? So it's like you're going, the same thing that Terry mentioned around political instability. This is actually a career asylum. This is professional asylum. And it should be called for that. It's actually professional genocide. And so this is the nonsense that's going on in many African countries. And I'm sorry to use the word nonsense, but it is exactly what it is. Where we push professionals outside, and then we come and say that it is pull factors in the UK, pull factors in the US. It is not.
Right. So, Dr. Okowa, I want to hear your thoughts on that one. There is actually no pull factor. It is really a push factor from the continent.
Yes, I would agree, because many Africans don't actually want to leave. Nobody really wants to leave their home. And everyone that is in Europe or in the United States is really looking forward to returning. So there is this hope that one day you can go back home, but the conditions are not there. And I know, for example, my friends that are attorneys in Ghana, they work really hard and they earn very little money. And if you invest it into the country, let's say real estate, with inflation, you don't even know what it's worth in a couple of years. You have a lot of uncertainties and not enough respect from the state for the labor that you are providing. And if we look at the legal sector, we have too few attorneys actually within Ghana to provide legal advice to everyone in need. So there is actually a need for professionals and in the legal sector to stay in Ghana and to keep working as an attorney, but the conditions are simply not there. So I really agree with the speakers that there should be investment into the foundations that people actually stay in the country.
Terry, which sectors exactly are seeing the highest levels of immigration? Because we do know that across the continent, the health sector is adversely affected. But which other sectors are seeing the highest levels of immigration?
It's what they call the STEM sector. So that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And of course, our healthcare sector as well. as well as skilled artisans. So look, we are in a global skills-based economy. So if we're looking at recruitment on a day-to-day basis, the way that we used to recruit in the past was very, very different to where we're at now. Today, it's not only about the hard skills, it's also about the softer skills. We are on the brink of a fourth industrial revolution. So obviously the birth of AI, data science, those types of positions. And I think the most important thing that we should be looking at in order to fuel the African economy are skills-based programs which can equip young African professionals much better and stand a better chance of getting, even if it is entry-level jobs. The problem comes in where there is a big gap between entry-level and middle management jobs, because this fourth industrial revolution, AI, is only in its introductory phase. Data science, data mining, very much in its introductory phase. So it is so imperative that we are fostering the youth, and we are investing in skills-based programs and business incubators. I mean, there are a number of tax incentives, tax breaks, with a lot of different platforms across Africa that one can benefit from. So we need to be using visionary thinking in terms of being able to equip these young African professionals to be competitive in a skills-based economy.
Right. Agnes, let me get your thoughts on this one. Should we care about this brain drain?
Of course. The African Union estimates that the continent loses about $2 billion per year through brain drain, right? Mm-hmm. And somebody argues we're getting between 50 to 60 billion in remittance. But what that does, the remittance, we all know, it creates a dependency cycle, right? We should really care about there is an economic value, and I agree with Dr. Kisho that most of us don't want to be out there. You know, we want to be here. We want to contribute to the continent. We don't want to come back when in our 60s or 70s, when we're a burden to the continent. So we should care. So can you imagine if 17 million Africans come back to the continent, we'll be competing for the same jobs that are not available. So yes, we should really care about it, and we should have this conversation. I think when I hear policymakers speaking, and I understand there's been some forward-thinking politicians, there are diaspora policies. Mm-hmm. I think Kenya has been leading on that, but it's usually very great on paper, but very difficult to implement.
So, Dr. Akoso, I want to come back to the whole question of remittances from the diaspora, because there is an argument that high-skilled workers that are in the diaspora, you know, remit, invest, and share knowledge with the communities back home, which many say offsets the whole idea of a brain drain. What's your thought on that?
It does not completely offset the brain drain effects, I would say. And I myself, my father's family comes from a small village in Kumasi, around Kumasi. It's a town in Ghana. And, you know, they're traditionally farmers. And I'm the first one in my family to have attained a PhD. So I'm also the whole pride of the family. And I do support, I send money, and it's, for me, also nice to see how, you know, they acquire land and start investing in themselves. However, it's not enough. It doesn't really counter the structural shortcomings. And I do agree that we need businesses to invest in Africa, like what I do, but upscale it, investing into entrepreneurs that then, you know, venture their own vision. However, businesses aren't investing in Africa as it should be, and that is due to infrastructural hurdles. There is not enough return. Mm-hmm. But if we look at the agricultural sector, Ghana alone in 2022 imported $2.6 billion worth of agricultural products, which could have been, you know, processed within the country. But we need the grand vision. We need leaders that actually, you know, put this into practice and actually encourage businesses and to invest into African economies. And with the AFTA, now the African Free Trade Area, that is also an opportunity. Maybe, you know, we have skilled workers not immigrating to the global north, but to a neighboring African country. But that's also made very difficult and opportunities are not there. But there is a strong chance that this can happen if really we harmonize policies and if African leaders are seriously about their commitment to creating job opportunities for young Africans.
All right, so I'm going to take a couple of questions here. Let's start off with you at the front. Yes.
My name is Stephen Nyaga. I'm a PhD candidate from the Department of Diplomacy and International Studies at the University of Nairobi. I would like to direct my question to Dr. Ouma Oluga. Do the African government, specifically the Kenyan government, need to re-engineer their foreign policies to incorporate health diplomacy to enhance their capacity to meet the threshold that has been recommended by the WHO, the ratio, the doctor-patient ratio of 1:1,000, as compared to what the statistics are showing that the doctor-patient ratio in Kenya is 1:17,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question?
My name is June Nyokabi, and my question is, how does brain drain influence global economic inequality? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nyaga, for your question. I'll look at your question in three ways. One is the OECD talking about the number of immigrants in their countries. And Europe just declared this decade the decade of the health worker because of aging population, increasing complexities of disease, and also expanding care systems in terms of they need a lot more people. And so there is an 18 million shortage of health workers globally. That shortage is more haunting in Africa. If you look at the 2023 report for the WHO, they have listed some countries in Africa. So what we call the health workforce crisis countries. Ghana is in that list. Nigeria and Kenya is not in that list. I think they should be in that list. In the previous list, Kenya was in that, was the list of the 57. And what the WHO is saying, that OECD has a shortage of health workers, but please do not take these health workers from countries that are already having a problem. So Kenya was in that list before, but Kenya is no longer in that list. They say now it's not red, it's now yellow, which I think it's debatable considering our. So that's the first thing. So that's why you find now there is bilateral agreements between Kenya and the UK for the nurses. There's a lot of engagements with Saudi Arabia and all those kind of countries, because Kenya is now off that list. And so when you're talking about health diplomacy, that is already gaining root. And the best examples that we could look at as an expert panel was between Germany and Philippines. So the Germans and the Philippines also have a lot of diplomatic relations, what they call labor diplomacy. In terms of the Filipinos, especially the health workers who go to Germany, there's a way in which there is reimbursement to the government of Filipino, yet in Germany they are also treated the same way that they treat the German health workers. So there is a bit of what they think is a gain, again not commensurate to even the remittances, but that's an example of a health diplomacy that you can look at.
Right, so the final question, global economic inequality. Perhaps Terry or Dr. Akosua, would you like to answer that for us?
So I think there is a correlation. Of course, if you lose your strongest workforce to foreign countries, and you know, there is an impact on economic equality. However, we are also seeing a little bit of a shift. For example, in the technology that is really regulated in the global north, you can see that there's a lot of fintech businesses, especially in Africa, striving and being very innovative, because there are challenges and young people are taking them on and starting to invent new technologies and mechanisms to overcome this. However, governments need to also be cautious not to, to hurt that innovation upcoming because of policies that they implement or taxes that they put on certain transactions, like we have seen in various African countries. But I think every challenge is an opportunity.
Terry, your thoughts?
When it comes to that skills gap, the way that we should be leveraging the African diaspora's expertise and networks and resources, we could leverage this for knowledge transfer, mentorship and investment in these African professionals' home countries. So whilst yes, we are losing the cream of the crop talent, one can actually turn this whole situation around and use these very same African professionals to create private and public partnerships for knowledge transfer and mentorship by way of structured incubators. And this is happening right across Africa. Kenya, Nigeria, the African Union, Zimbabwe are just a few to name or mention.
All right, and we are going to be looking at policies and solutions in our next program. But that is all we have time for on this edition of Talk Africa. Do join us again next week as we continue this discussion by shifting gears to explore viable solutions to curb brain drain and foster the growth and development of African nations. A big thank you to our panel of experts, Dr. Ouma Oluga, Health Workforce Expert, Agnes Gitau, Managing Partner, GBS Africa, Dr. Anna Akoswa, German-Ghanaian attorney, scholar and lecturer in international law, and Terry Itana Masele, headhunter and founder of the Good Human Recruitment Agency. I'd also like to thank our live audience, students from the University of Nairobi and the University of Daystar. Remember, you can be a part of this conversation through our social media platforms on Facebook and X, and you can watch this and other editions of Talk Africa on our YouTube playlist. To join us again next week for more Talk Africa. From me, Beatrice Marshall, and the team here in Nairobi. Until next time, goodbye.